The average senior home contains over 300 items no one in the family actually wants, yet most of us keep them just in case. A spare toaster in the garage. A box of cables for electronics we no longer own. Christmas decorations from 3 decades ago, buried under guilt and memory. We don't even see it as clutter anymore, we see it as proof that we lived, that we meant something. But what if all that stuff is quietly draining our space, our peace, even our legacy? Here's the uncomfortable truth. After 60, every single item you choose to keep is either a blessing to your future, or a burden to someone else. Your adult children don't want to guess what mattered to you. They don't want to cry over bins of old dishes and receipts while trying to make decisions in a rush. They want clarity. And more importantly, you deserve peace, now, not someday. This video isn't about minimalism. It's not about tossing everything you own. It's about reclaiming control over your home and your story. And it starts today. These 7 savage decluttering habits aren't gentle. But they work. They cleared out decades of weight for people just like you, in less than 48 hours. If you're ready for less stress, more space, and a home that feels like it fits your life today, not the past, hit like and subscribe. This one might just set you free. Sylma Braid was the kind of woman who still baked from scratch on Sundays and read the newspaper front to back with a highlighter in hand. At 74, she lived alone in a red brick ranch house in southern Ohio, just a few miles from where she raised her children and delivered mail for over 30 years. Her laugh was warm, her opinions firm, and her independence sacred. She lost her husband, Everett, nearly 2 decades ago to a quiet, cruel illness. Since then, she'd been the anchor for everyone else, her grown children, her church community, her neighbors. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. It wasn't depression or chaos. It was heaviness. Quiet, invisible, but always there. Room by room, memory by memory, her home had become a museum of a life she wasn't quite living anymore. She never considered herself a hoarder. In fact, she was tidy, always had been. But inside those neat drawers and labeled bins were 47 years of unopened anniversary cards, cassette tapes from her son's high school band, and 5 broken clocks Everett always meant to fix. There were coats that hadn't been worn since the 90s, a sewing machine that hadn't hummed since the Bush administration, and a closet of someday clothes for events that would never come. Then one morning, she stood at her hallway mirror and said aloud, "I want to live in this home, not just store my memories here." That single sentence changed everything. Sylma didn't start with an app. She didn't call a professional organizer. She made a pot of strong coffee, opened every curtain in her house, and grabbed a yellow legal pad. She wrote down 7 actions that scared her, and then she did them, one after the other, over the next 2 days. What happened wasn't just a clean house. It was a reset. A shift in energy. For the first time in years, Sylma felt like she could breathe, not because the house was empty, but because it finally reflected who she was now, not who she used to be. Sylma's story isn't about downsizing. It's about reclaiming your home from the invisible weight of should, someday, and what if. She represents thousands of seniors who aren't ready to give up their homes, but are more than ready to take them back. Her 2-day transformation wasn't about speed. It was about boldness. And each of her 7 habits started with one decision: to live forward, not backward. Habit number 1. The 5-minute entryway sweep. Sylma didn't start in the garage. She didn't haul out big bins or tackle her attic first. She started at the front door, where most of us don't realize the clutter begins. Her logic was simple: if I can't breathe when I walk in, the rest of the house doesn't stand a chance. The entryway of your home is the emotional handshake of your day. It's the first impression you get when you walk through the door. Yet for many seniors, it slowly becomes a dumping ground. Coats that don't fit, junk mail piled on the bench, a walker they no longer use, bags from stores they forgot they visited. Over time, that small space sends a quiet message: you're behind, you're overwhelmed, and you're not in control. Sylma called it her 5-minute energy reset. She grabbed a small timer from her kitchen drawer, set it for 5 minutes, and gave herself one mission: clear the entryway until the timer buzzed. No overthinking. No sorting. Just movement. One surface, one item at a time. She started with the shoe rack. Out went the winter boots with cracked soles, the orthopedic sandals she never wore but felt guilty throwing away. She moved to the bench, where a stack of unopened mail had grown legs over the past month. Most of it? Junk, duplicates, or old bills already paid online. Then she dusted the light switch and replaced the flickering bulb in the hallway lamp. 5 minutes. That was it. But when she stepped back, the difference felt enormous. She said, "I didn't just clear clutter, I cleared permission to keep going." And that's the beauty of this habit. It's not about perfection or even completion. It's about momentum. It's about choosing any space, no matter how small, and giving it your full attention for 5 focused minutes. Seniors often get overwhelmed by the idea of decluttering the whole house. But no house is ever cleared all at once. It starts where you stand. This habit works because the entryway is your home's mood setter. When it feels clean, light, and open, your brain signals safety and order. That small shift can ripple into the rest of the house, and into your emotions. It also restores a sense of agency, especially for older adults who feel like the house has started making decisions for them. 5 minutes of focused action gives you back control. Look at your front door right now. What's the first thing you see when you walk in? Is it peaceful or piled up? Let us know in the comments. And if it's time to reclaim that first space, set your timer. Just 5 minutes. Then tell us how it felt. Habit number 2, no alibi decluttering, if you haven't touched it in 5 years. Sylma stood in front of a box labeled Keepsakes, 1997, and felt something between confusion and dread. She didn't even remember packing it. But the guilt of tossing it out? That hit instantly. Inside were things she hadn't seen in over 2 decades, lace-trimmed tablecloths, a chipped teacup from her mother's old hutch, 2 faded programs from her daughter's middle school plays. None of it had been touched, used, or even remembered. Yet the idea of letting go felt like betrayal. So she made a rule: if I haven't touched it in 5 years, I'm not allowed to make excuses. No alibis. No someday logic. Just truth. She took out a yellow notepad and wrote down 10 maybe items, things she kept saying she might need, might pass down, or might feel ready to let go of later. Then came the most important question. Why am I really keeping this? Was it guilt? Habit? Fear of forgetting? Sylma realized she wasn't keeping the chipped teacup because it brought her joy. She was keeping it because it belonged to someone she missed. That's a powerful realization for anyone, especially older adults who've lived through layers of loss. To honor the memory without keeping the object, she tried something new. She took a photo of each item. But not just the item alone, she held it in her hands for the picture. She wrote a note on the back of each photo, explaining its story. Then she placed the photos in a small legacy journal she kept on a shelf. The items? Donated, gifted, or tossed. The memories? Preserved in a way that didn't take up boxes and floor space. This method, photo and story, is powerful. It breaks the mental loop that says, if I throw this out, I'm throwing away the person. No. You're keeping what matters, the meaning, the memory, the story. That's what your kids and grandkids truly want, not a closet full of dusty linens. Letting go isn't about disrespect. It's about making space to live with intention. And for seniors especially, releasing sentimental clutter can be the most emotionally freeing step of all. It's not about erasing your past, it's about honoring it without being weighed down by it. Take one item you haven't touched in 5 years. Hold it. Ask yourself, why am I really keeping this? If the answer is anything other than love or usefulness, try Sylma's method. Photograph it. Write the story. Then let the object go and feel the weight lift. Habit number 3, the fire drill method. One rainy Thursday morning, Sylma asked herself a question most people over 60 avoid. If I had to leave this house tomorrow, what would I take, and what would I finally stop pretending I need? That single thought led her to create what she called the fire drill method. It wasn't about panic or paranoia. It was about pressure-induced clarity. Because sometimes, When you give yourself unlimited time, you make excuses. But when you imagine that time is up, your instincts take over, and the truth surfaces fast. Sylma grabbed a duffel bag, set a kitchen timer for 3 hours, and gave herself a mission: move through the entire house as if she had to pack the essentials right now. No organizing. No labeling. Just a fast-paced walkthrough of her life, deciding what really mattered. She had 3 mental categories: toss, items broken, expired, or useless. A donate, items with value but no place in her current life. A ask, family, things she didn't need but knew someone might treasure. By the end of that 3-hour fire drill, she'd filled 3 garbage bags, 2 large donation boxes, and had set aside only a handful of items for her children, after texting them to ask if they even wanted them. She was stunned. 80% of what she touched? She didn't need. And the most shocking part? She didn't feel guilty. She felt awake. Because under pressure, her true priorities revealed themselves. She realized that she'd been keeping dozens of framed pictures she never looked at, kitchen gadgets she hadn't used since Clinton was president, and clothes from a version of herself that no longer existed. This method works because it strips away the emotional fog. It puts your decision-making in the present, not in the fantasy of someday I might. And for seniors, this kind of clarity is gold. It's not about rushing, it's about bypassing the emotional stallout that keeps us stuck in indecision. Sylma's tip? Don't overthink. Don't even sort. Walk fast. Trust your gut. And give yourself a clear window of time. You're not preparing to leave tomorrow. But you are preparing to live lighter, freer, and more focused today. But there was still one room Sylma hadn't touched in 6 years. The door stayed closed like it was guarding a ghost. And it took the next habit to finally open it. Habit number 4, start where you avoid. There was one door in Sylma's home she hadn't opened in years. Not fully. Not willingly. It was her late husband Everett's office, a quiet little room at the back of the house with his worn leather chair, unopened drawers, dusty trophies, and a calendar still pinned to the wall from the year he passed. She would walk past it every day. Sometimes she'd glance at the doorknob. Other times, she'd quicken her steps like it might reach out and pull her in. The grief wasn't raw anymore, but it lingered like fog, heavy, still, and unexplored. That's why, when she reached habit number 4, she didn't start with her linen closet or pantry. She stood in front of that door and whispered, "If I can clear this, I can clear anything." This habit, start where you avoid, isn't about being dramatic. It's about flipping the pattern most seniors fall into, starting small, safe, and surface level. But that often leads to stalled progress. Why? Because we keep circling the easy stuff while the hardest space holds all the weight. Sylma didn't tidy. She didn't prep. She just walked in. At first, it was overwhelming. But then something shifted. She wasn't just decluttering a room, she was releasing permission. She pulled open drawers and realized they were filled with old cables, receipts, and paper clips. The hard room wasn't sacred, it was simply stuck. And once she started, it became easier with every step. She found Everett's old fishing license and cried. She found 3 ties she knew her grandson would love. She found files that didn't matter anymore. And with each object she released, the room started feeling less like a museum and more like part of her home again. The emotional release surprised her. Not because it was sad, but because it was healing. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe in that space without holding her chest tight. That's what this habit does. The room you avoid is the room that's holding the most energy hostage. It's where unfinished emotions and unresolved stories sit collecting dust. But the moment you step into it, not to conquer it, but simply to begin, you break the power it has over you. You don't have to finish it in one day. You don't even have to finish it alone. But starting there sends a clear message to your mind: you are ready. Everyone has one. That room, closet, drawer, or garage corner that you pretend you'll get to next month. What's your avoid room? Say it out loud, or drop it in the comments if you're feeling brave. That first word might be your first step. Habit number 5, stop reorganizing junk. When Sylma reached the hall closet, She expected it to be quick. After all, everything was labeled, boxed, and neatly stacked. 9 clear totes, each one with a handwritten tag, yarn, ribbon, glue guns, scrapbooking, holiday crafts. She felt proud of how organized it all looked. But then she pulled out the first bin. Inside were unused supplies from a quilting project she'd abandoned in 2004. Beneath it, a roll of decorative mesh she bought during a wreath-making phase that lasted exactly one Christmas. Tucked in the corner of another bin was a glue gun with rusted metal and wires so tangled she didn't dare plug it in. That's when it hit her. This isn't organized. It's disguised. Sylma had fallen into a trap that many seniors do, believing that putting things in boxes makes them valuable again. But organizing clutter doesn't make it useful. It just makes it harder to admit it's not part of your life anymore. So she made a new rule: if it's boxed, sealed, and untouched for more than a year, it's not being saved, it's being hidden. She opened each tote one by one, asking herself, have I used this in the past 12 months? If the answer was no, she didn't tuck it back in a bin. She donated it, recycled it, or tossed it. The only items she kept were the ones she knew she'd use that week, and those were placed on open shelves, within reach, where they inspired action instead of guilt. She turned her hallway closet from a crypt of maybe someday supplies into a small, vibrant crafting station she actually enjoyed. Not a museum of hobbies past, but a place where joy and creativity were present again. This habit is especially powerful for seniors who pride themselves on being organized. You may think you're doing great because you've labeled everything and stacked it neatly, but if you haven't touched what's inside in years, what are you really saving? Ask yourself this: am I storing potential or burying the truth? Because those storage bins often contain not memories, but pressure. Pressure to be who you once were. Pressure to finish what you started. Pressure to prove you didn't waste money. But clutter is never redeemed by guilt. It's only redeemed when it serves you now. Be honest, how many boxes or bins do you have labeled and forgotten? Pick one. Just one. Open it this week and ask, is this bringing life into my home, or just taking up space? Tell us in the comments what you discover. You might be surprised. Habit number 6, 2 witnesses rule. By the end of day 1, Sylma hit a wall. Not physically, emotionally. Decision fatigue had crept in. She found herself staring at a box of mismatched mugs for nearly 20 minutes, asking, do I really need these? But what if someone wants one someday? Maybe I should keep just 2, or maybe 4. That's when she knew it was time to activate what she called her 2 witnesses rule. It's a simple but powerful safeguard, especially for seniors, because when you're tired, sentimental, or second-guessing, clutter can start to look reasonable again. And in those moments, we all need someone else to reflect the truth back to us. Sylma had 2 trusted people she could call, her niece Camille and her longtime neighbor Mr. Hanley. They weren't just helpful, they were honest. Before she committed to keeping anything she wasn't sure about, she'd send a photo or describe the item and ask one question. Would you want this if I were gone? That was the filter. Not is it valuable? Not is it pretty? But, would this mean something to you, or is it just another decision you'd have to make while grieving? If both of her witnesses said no, it was out. No arguing. No negotiating. That object didn't pass the legacy test. And here's the brilliant part: this rule doesn't just keep you honest. It protects your energy. Decluttering isn't always about physical labor, it's the emotional weight that wears you down. Having someone else you trust share that responsibility lightens the load. The 2 witnesses rule also helped Sylma stay grounded. Instead of falling into nostalgia spirals, she stayed connected to the present, and to the people who would one day have to walk through her home after she's gone. That's not morbid. That's kind. That's love in action. For seniors, this rule is gold. It takes away the mental gymnastics and replaces it with a simple yes or no test. And best of all, it's social. It turns a solo task into a shared, meaningful conversation. You don't have to do this alone. Think about who could be your decluttering witnesses. Someone who knows you, loves you, and won't sugarcoat things. Who's your decluttering buddy? Tag them in the comments, or send them this video. Because this habit works best in pairs. And sometimes, the most valuable thing in your home is someone you trust to say, let it go. Habit number 7, the I'm not immortal box. By the second evening, Sylma had cleared entire rooms, emptied closets, and finally let go of boxes she hadn't opened in decades. But even with all that progress, there was one final task she knew she couldn't skip, the most personal one of all. She went to her bedroom, pulled out a plain showbox, and wrote 6 quiet words on the lid in bold marker. If I go tomorrow, open this. She didn't call it a legacy box. Not a death box. Not a goodbye kit. Just a clear message for the people who would come after her. Because Sylma knew something that many avoid: we're not immortal. And pretending we are only makes things harder for the ones we love. Inside, she placed just 3 things. First, a handwritten letter. 1 page, addressed to her family. It wasn't poetic or dramatic, it was real. A few words of love. A line or 2 of memories. And a note saying where her most important documents were located. Second, her will, medical directives, and power of attorney papers, all clearly marked, updated, and neatly folded in a labeled folder. No guesswork. No hunting. And third, a small photo album, just 20 pictures. No extras. No double prints. Just the moments she would want her family to remember: her wedding day, her babies, her garden in full bloom, and one shot of her smiling on the back porch, coffee in hand, looking peaceful. That's it. 1 box. 1 hour. Total peace. Creating this box wasn't sad. In fact, Sylma described it as the most empowering part of the entire process. Because it gave her control, not over her death, but over her legacy. And it gave her loved ones clarity during a moment that's already difficult enough. Too often, families are left sorting through drawers, papers, and boxes in a haze of grief. Decisions become arguments. Keepsakes become sources of guilt. But 1 box, clearly marked and lovingly prepared, can change all of that. For seniors, especially in the US, this is a growing conversation. More and more older adults are realizing that preparation isn't about planning for death. It's about reducing chaos, avoiding conflict, and gifting peace. Sylma kept that box on the top shelf of her closet. Not hidden, but not loud. Just ready. She didn't think about it often. She didn't have to. But knowing it was there, that gave her a quiet confidence every single day. If you had to put just 3 things in a box labeled "If I go tomorrow," what would they be? Share one in the comments. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to start. By the end of day 2, Sylma's home didn't feel smaller, it felt lighter. Not because she cleared every inch or created a magazine-worthy minimalist space. That was never the goal. What changed was the atmosphere. The way the light poured through the windows without being blocked by old boxes. The calmness of a room where the walls could finally breathe. The way her own footsteps echoed a little softer through hallways that once held too much. She hadn't emptied her house. She had unburdened it. Her kitchen counters, once crowded with gadgets and papers, now had only the essentials: a tea kettle she used every morning, a vase of fresh flowers, and a small radio playing soft jazz. Her living room held just 1 cozy chair by the window, a small table with her favorite book, and 1 framed photo, the whole family smiling under a summer sky. No clutter, no distractions. Just comfort. Even her bedroom had transformed. No more stacks of unread books on the floor. No more old clothes shoved in drawers. Just the soft hum of peace. And perhaps most importantly, her hallway, the one where Everett's office door had stayed closed for 6 years, was wide open. The room had been cleared, cleaned, and converted into a quiet reading space. Not a shrine. Not a storage closet. A living space again. Sylma didn't do it to impress anyone. She didn't do it for resale or for show. She did it because she was tired of walking around old decisions. I realized I was curating a museum of who I used to be, she said. Now I'm preparing a peaceful future, for me and for the ones I love. That's what real decluttering looks like after 60. It's not fast. It's not always easy. But it's deeply freeing. You don't need to do it all in one go. You don't need to throw away your memories. But you can take back your space, one habit, one brave decision, one honest moment at a time. And if Sylma's story sparked something in you, maybe a little discomfort, or a quiet it's time, don't ignore it. That feeling isn't fear. It's readiness. If this helped you take even one brave step toward a simpler life, hit that like button. If someone you love needs to hear this, share the video with them. And if you're ready to live lighter, freer, and more present after 60, subscribe. We've got more where this came from. Your home. Your peace. Your future. It all starts now.